Good morning, everyone. This is Coach Wildman. Welcome to another morning of Coach the Coaches on Volleyball Coaches of Canada. This morning, our co-host is U of W assistant coach Megan Bradshaw, and our special guest today is SFU women's head coach Gina Schmidt. Gina, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Like everyone knows, if everyone can just throw comments, questions, and all that sort of stuff in the comment section to the left of the screen, that would be appreciated, and we will go through this for an hour. Gina, last time you joined us, like I was saying prior to going live here, I think there was 100 people in this group, so I think the questions are going to come fast and furious, and I'm glad your back's feeling better, and welcome to the 21st session. Megan, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I want to go way back for a little bit. I was interested in the fact that when you played Canada Games, there were 4 Canada Games players from Beaver Lodge, Alberta, that were on that team. I read that and I went, wow, that's pretty impressive. So what's in the water there, like Beaver Lodge, Alberta?
You know, it's such a great question and so funny. Yes, for a team of 12 people, for a third of the team to be from a town of 1,800 people, it is pretty rare. One of those was my sister, so I was kind of cool of getting to play with my sister, who went on to play at the University of Alberta during their kind of championship days with Lori Eisler there. And then one player that ended up actually after kind of games going to SFU, so playing where I'm at right now, and another player that went on to the University of Winnipeg, actually. So I would say it all when it comes to Beaver Lodge. I'm going to say a huge part of that might be or would be our Beaver Lodge High School coach, Erin Martin, who I believe coached my oldest sister, so probably from 1992 until last year. And so if you look at even Danielle Smith, who's on the national team, setter, is also from Beaver Lodge, Alberta. The number of youth sport athletes or volleyball players that have come out, so even my other sister actually played at Waterloo, and Heather Weremouth played at Calgary, Hillary Homey, Calgary. It just like the number of volleyball players that have come out of, I would say, Beaver Lodge High School, it is kind of crazy. And just, I think in the north there, volleyball was the sport to play for females. Soccer, our season wasn't very long to have a soccer, and basketball seemed to be a little bit more popular in southern Alberta, so it was a combination of volleyball being the sport and then having some really great coaches in that area, and also especially with, like, say, the Grand Prairie Wolves Club during that time. So, and you still see Andre Turgeon is still coaching up in Grand Prairie now with SPDC, but Dave Johnson, Lee Carter, who you and I know both very well, he was at the Grand Prairie College tournament kind of during those days. Actually, my entire club team all went on to play at GPRC other than me. So it was kind of a hotbed of volleyball at the time, and there still continues to be a lot of good talent coming out of the north.
Awesome. So what was kind of the decision to go down to the NCAA? That was, kind of I guess a bit of an adventure for you, right, to kind of leave Canada. I understand you had offers both in Canada and the States, and sort of what led you down there?
It wasn't an easy decision, I'll say that. I remember being very, very stressed about that whole decision. Like I said, at the time, U of A was the top program in Canada at the time. I really respected Lori, and it was one of the things was just like I knew I wanted to get away and kind of maybe get out of Alberta, maybe to where I didn't have to deal with the winters. And so when I went on visits and considered the different options, I remember visiting Oregon and in maybe February of my grade 12 year, and it was green. It was green in February, and it was just like this beautiful campus, and I felt a very good connection with the team and the coaching staff, and it was in a good conference. I got to play against Kerry Walsh and Logan Tom, and the Pac-10 at the time was, and still Pac-12 now continues to be one of the top conferences in the NCAA. And so the combination of something different, getting to play at a very high level. But it definitely wasn't an easy decision. I definitely strongly considered staying in Canada for that education piece, but it just, I figured, actually was the coach at Oregon said, come and try it out, and if you decide you don't like it, you can always go back. You always transfer back to Canada, but I promise you'll love it. And he was right, so I did kind of have that idea of like, I'll go down here, I'll give it a try, and worst case, I can always maybe come back. But I ended up enjoying my 4 years down there, and it seemed to turn out okay for me.
Who was the coach at the time?
So I was recruited by Jeff Mazzocchi.
Okay.
And then after my first year, there was a coaching change, and for the next 3 years, I was coached by Nancy Samara.
Okay.
I won't stay in your far past for a long time, but I had one question too about your first senior national team tryout in '98. I believe it was with Doug Reimer, right? It was in Winnipeg. How did it feel to go into a tryout, being as young as you were, and having all of those women who had gone to the Olympics 2 years before that? Like, what was that like, and how did that kind of shape you as a player?
Well, I remember it distinctly because we finished the national final. So my Grand Prairie Wolves team played Frank Enz's Saskatchewan team in the final of nationals, U18 nationals, on SFU's court. And we finished the game, and I had to go straight to the airport to fly to Winnipeg for the tryouts. The rest of my team all went for a team dinner and had this big, celebration, and I had to peace out to go to these tryouts. And I was 18, and I did not know a single person. So I flew in. We drove me to the Army barracks where we stayed for the tryouts, and I didn't know a single person. They were all older than me. So I just the experience of being that uncomfortable certainly helped, and for all of this, all the things I faced afterwards, the next tryouts or going to Europe and joining a new team, this idea of just going in completely cold and, okay, I'm here to play volleyball, I just have to focus on playing volleyball. So I at the time, for sure, it was uncomfortable, but there was, so many benefits from having to do that. And then, I remember, being at the tryouts with people like Janice Kelly and Wanda Gannett and these people that I had watched at the Olympics. And, just being, I wouldn't say ever like maybe starstruck, but it was like, wow, to be in the same gym with them was maybe something I hadn't pictured myself doing quite so quickly. And really my thought was, okay, just try not to, be out of place, try not to be the drill killer, right? So can I just hold my own? I knew going in, and when Doug invited me to tryouts, I assumed it was not because, he thought I was going to make it at 18, but just, so I didn't have any pressure going in, so that helped. I wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm going to show these, these A-team players, who's boss. No, I was just like soaking up the experience of getting to play beside them and with no expectations. So I think that did allow me to play pretty free. And I don't even, honestly, it's a blur. I don't remember much about it. I remember the army beds and a little bit from the tryouts, but how I played, it's actually a blur. But it was definitely a very eye-opening experience, and definitely helped for the subsequent years where I came back, and just that little bit less stress every time, every subsequent tryout being, okay, I know what's coming. I'm I've been here before. So it definitely was beneficial in a lot of ways.
And then sort of going back and forth between playing pro and then back with the national team, like what was that like, kind of, playing volleyball all year round, but into kind of very different systems and places? Yeah,
and I think every athlete that you'll talk to on the national team will say the same thing about that. I mean, going from one coach to another coach, the coaches in Europe can sometimes have completely different systems or styles. You can run the whole gamut in terms of coaching styles over there, from country to country or whatever. And just even the level of organization and all of that stuff. It can definitely be a roller coaster at times, but it just comes with the territory. So I think most athletes, by the time they're at that level, are pretty adaptable and know that they have to kind of just roll with the punches. So I was lucky. I had great experiences on the 6 different teams. So I played in 6 different teams in 5 different countries. So I definitely got a wide range of experiences. But yeah, it just comes with the territory as an athlete, and I think every national team player can attest to that. But it's, again, I think that just comes with speaks to the resiliency that athletes have to kind of build as they go through that kind of career.
I like how you use the word adaptable, and when I was looking into your past, I also noticed that you were a setter and an attacker, and I'm thinking, wow, like to play both at such a high level, obviously speaks to your skill level. And do you think that being able to do both kind of transferred really well into coaching for you, having both the setter outlook as well as an attacker outlook?
I definitely think so. I mean, it was, at the time, it did make things a little bit difficult when I was switching positions, like literally from the summer and, into that pro season, or even within the same pro season, actually back-to-back seasons. My first year in France, I was on the team as a setter, and then our right side player ended up getting pregnant halfway through the year, and I became the starting right side to fill her spot. So the following year, I got a contract as an outside hitter, and a month into the season, our setter, 2 consecutive years of me actually playing a different position than what I was even hired to do. So, yeah, which again, to step in and help our team in those situations, but definitely, it was not always easy as a player to kind of be able to focus and really gain what I needed to do in any one position when it's like, okay, I was kind of flip-flopping a little bit, but it is, when it comes, as it relates to coaching now, I do think it certainly helps to have that wider range of knowledge of positions, and I did, even in one match in Europe or in pro, play as a middle, because we had 3 middles on the team and 2 got injured. So our coach literally walked into the gym and looked around and goes, well, we only have 1 middle for this week. Anybody want to give it a go? And I kind of put up my hand and I go, well, I played middle in high school. So he's like, all right, it's you. So we played, I believe, against Cannes. They were the top team in the league, and I played the match in middle for our team. So yeah, no, it was kind of a very maybe not typical career that I had, but it certainly has helped now that I'm in a coaching role.
Yeah. So what kind of led you to want to start coaching? You finished your pro career, and what kind of took you to Montana, right, for your first coaching gig?
Yeah, and I would actually say it was coaching that maybe got me out of playing. So I was still playing overseas, and actually it was before I even went to my last pro season. The head coach at Montana had been my assistant coach at Oregon State. He got the head coaching job at the University of Montana, and he wrote me and said, would you consider coming and being my assistant coach? And I said, well, I'm not quite ready to be done playing yet. I have a contract to go over to Finland, so I'm going to do this season. And then the whole time I was in that last season, I kept kind of, putting it in my mind, is this something I want to do? And I'd heard a lot of coaching friends who had maybe shown interest in coaching in the NCAA. And, without maybe a foot in the door, couldn't even get an interview. And here I was being basically offered a Division I assistant coaching position on a silver platter without really any experience. And that kind of just in my mind going like, I don't know what I want to do after I'm done playing. And this seems like a great opportunity to maybe see if I like coaching. So by the end of that year in Finland, I was like, you know what, I maybe had kind of reached the end of wanting to live in a different country and a different year. And, I was in this, a town of maybe 10,000 people and up in northern Finland. And I thought maybe it would be nice to try something else. So I took him up on the offer, and basically I finished my pro season in April. And then by, I think, May, I was down in Montana coaching.
That's awesome. And then, so you spent a little bit of time there, and then this SFU job came open. That was obviously a big jump, but clearly something that you wanted to do and that you've done a great job at. So what kind of led you to want to be a head coach? Were you sort of beyond being an assistant coach, or?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was actually very happy with the role I had at Montana. I enjoyed the team and the city, and I actually was quite happy where I was at. it was only when that I don't think even knew the job had come open, but I had two friends who were living here in Vancouver who both, when the job came open, they both texted me and said, hey, the SFU job came open, are you going to apply? And the first thing that came to my mind was, I don't think I'm not ready to be a head coach, right? Like, I don't think anybody at that point feels ready. And it was only through talking with some of my mentors and friends who said, you'll never feel ready, so you might as well just, throw your hat in. And so after talking to people, I'm like, yeah, what do I have to lose to, I thought I probably won't get it. I was missing maybe a few of the items in the job description, whether it was 5 years of head coaching experience, I didn't have that. And so, or at that time, because I had gone straight into the NCAA, I didn't have my level 3 certification. But I did know our athletic director at the time, who would be the person hiring me, was an American. And I knew probably for him that some NCAA experience would be probably very high on his list. And I knew I had that. I knew they wanted to hire a Canadian who had NCAA experience. So I thought, I'll throw my name in the hat. And then all of a sudden I became a finalist, and it all happened very quickly. And I was still surprised when I got the job. But it literally, when I was reading more and learning more about it, I thought this is actually the perfect job for me. It was almost like a dream job, like to be back in Canada, in Vancouver, where both of my sisters had lived at some point. But to still coach in the NCAA, it was like, it's actually a job perfectly for me. So I was very fortunate to have gotten the position, and I'm very grateful that I'm still here.
What's it like being a bit of an island, being in the NCAA, but being in Canada? Like, if you're looking to text someone or call someone or get some advice, like, what direction do you go, or is it kind of that you can go every direction and have a much broader range of people you can kind of connect with?
I think it's the latter, and the coaching community in Canada is fairly small, and I just through my past or with my time with the national team, I do know a lot of the coaches here in Canada, and it is a little bit like I'm neutral. I'm like Switzerland a little bit, but if somebody gives me some advice, or I'm looking for some mentoring, it's not like I'm gonna it's not gonna come back to bite them if my team beats them because we're not gonna play ever. So I definitely do use some of my fellow coaching friends here in Canada to bounce ideas off of and talk to, and it's a very valuable resource. And I also do have still friends down in the States as well, and that now I'm not in their league either, right? So I love talking with other coaches, and anywhere I can glean some new information, I'm always open. So it is true. It kind of about us being on a little bit of an island, and this kind of anomaly. But I enjoy it in terms of that flexibility of being kind of maybe not threatening to as many people.
Nice. And I guess that it kind of lends itself to recruiting a little bit too. It's giving kids a pretty unique opportunity. Your roster is comprised of mostly Canadians, mostly BC kids. I know there's a couple kids from other places, a Winnipeg girl, but it must be kind of a unique opportunity for those athletes too. That must be kind of a draw, having them come to SFU.
Right, I hope so, and it is. It's there is a lot to be said about a Canadian education, right? And just that convenience of right now not having to cross a border, or just and like I said, there's a lot of our kids are from BC. There's a lot of talented players here, and those are the ones I get to see the most, right? So that's when it comes to recruiting. It definitely, we spend a lot of time getting to know the players before they can come into our program, right? So all of those things lend into having Canadian players, but there's a lot of players that there is this allure of the NCAA and just something different of getting to travel to some maybe different places, right? So we get to go to almost in preseason, go to California, Hawaii, and our conference is the whole Pacific Northwest, including Alaska. A lot of people maybe haven't good chances to go to Alaska, and it's a really cool place. So it is this nice mix of of still getting, to be here in Canada, but getting to experience that NCAA game.
Very cool. Sorry, I feel like I've monopolized all the questions, Dave.
No problem. No, I got a bunch of questions in the comments, so we'll just go through some of those and then we'll throw it back your way, Megan. Gina, you did an amazing job bringing SFU back on the map with the women's team once you were hired. They were pretty uneventful for years prior, but you took them to a national, like you qualified for nationals for like the first time in school history and stuff like that. And just because I know Rob Gow is a friend of both of ours, he was your assistant coach for so long, and love the guy. He's great. He's now coaching at Capilano College, the women's team. How did you manage Rob, and what was his roles? So how do you manage your assistant coaching staff? And is there stuff that you put on their head where you just leave it alone and it's their thing?
Right, and yeah, it's I would say when it comes to the coaching staff, it is always kind of been based on who that person is. So my very first year was actually Kim Stonehouse, who's now the head coach at Medicine Hat College, which again is always great when if somebody from our staff can then go on to become a head coach. So Kim went on to become head coach at Medicine Hat, and now Rob is at Capilano. So that is great. That's fulfilling for me, or knowing that then they can move on and take the reins themselves. And so, for example, when it was Kim, she had been an outside hitter. So I put her in charge of outside hitters during that season. And then maybe I took the middles and setters. When it was Rob, maybe I gave him the middle blockers, and I continued to always kind of take the setters, and then maybe I was back with the outside hitters. So this now we have Mandy. She was a libero and a setter when she played professionally. I have Tessa May, who's one of my former players, is now helping out, and she was a middle. So now if we're in positional groups, it will be Tessa that kind of will go and be with the middle. So it kind of it evolves based on who our personnel are, and then what their strengths are. And so I think that's important, is just knowing what where their strengths are and what they're most comfortable kind of doing. And then when it comes to in-game, within a match, what are they in terms of tracking? I believe Rob was in charge of tracking kind of the other team's offense. And so in terms of our serving and who's passing well and all of that things, who should we be going after, what are their tendencies? So stuff like that in game, that then they can let me know what we should be doing, maybe blocking defensive wise.
Mm-hmm. So how was it? I was fortunate to get to know you a lot better during the Team BC when we went to Nova Scotia. And Rob Gow has been hired by Team BC for many years as a head coach, and been at the U18 and been extremely successful. So how was it reverse roles when you were his assistant coach for that Team BC segment?
It was a blast, actually. It was kind of fun to be back in an assistant coach role where you kind of get to be good cop all the time. You're just the happy fun time coach, just giving the positive reinforcement and not having to worry about the admin stuff, the planning, and it was also helpful because having worked with Rob for a long time, when he was putting the practice up on the whiteboard, it's like I didn't have to ask him much, what this drill means. It's, I knew it very well. So, and same thing, if you could just say, okay, can you take the middles over to that court and do this with them? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it didn't have to be a lot of discussion because I knew exactly what it was he wanted me to do with them, and so I really enjoyed that experience, and we had a lovely group of players, so it was just a great. That was a great summer experience. Yeah,
it was a ton of fun. I missed that year. So Tammy Thomas from Kelowna from T2 Volleyball has joined us. Her question is, how is the pandemic affecting your recruitment and your recruitment plans for the future?
It's a very good question. Luckily we were far enough along with our 2021 recruiting like I like to be kind of recruiting a year in advance, which means I would have known that group when they were, going back to when they were 16, so pre-pandemic. So this graduating class right now, I felt I had a pretty good grasp on them by the time that they were making decisions and signing. So this incoming class, that was far enough before the pandemic that I had a pretty good handle on it. Going forward with this 2022 class, I will say it's definitely a bit more of a challenge because these are the players that would have been U16 this past club season that got cut short. And I'm lucky with our NCAA season that I do get to recruit a little bit more than most U Sport coaches. So they're in season still, January, February, and even up to March if there are nationals. Whereas by January, if there's club tournaments, I can be out every weekend. And in fact, before everything got shut down, what was it, first week of March?
Yeah.
We would have hosted 4 or 5 club tournaments at SFU on Sundays. I would have been to the first Super Series, and I even got to go to the first ABA tournament in Edmonton and Calgary before everything got shut down. So I was able to see, a fair amount of players, even this past club season before things got shut down. But still, that's at U16. So now this is the U17 age, where it would be a very big recruiting year for that 22 class. And depending on what occurs with this club season, it will be a lot harder to evaluate if we can't see them play live, if they can't play in live games 6-on-6. So it's going to have to be a lot, maybe more based on video obviously, but even coach club coach evaluations, or just having to glean some stuff from other ways than just my own eyes in a gym at a tournament. Hopefully things will open up, and I will also say I was fortunate that we were able to host some small summer camps in August, and so we actually had a fairly high caliber groups that came in August, and it was like 12 to 14 people in a gym, but there were some very interesting players, and right now I would say those players that were able to come to our summer camp have a definite step up, because I've now seen them live. I've gotten to work with them in person, and so I would say for the next 22 and 23 classes, that summer camp was a huge piece for us.
Now, with obviously COVID being such a focal point in these last year and a half, there's a university in Ontario that just went bankrupt, and obviously funding in Canada is limited as it is in the best of times. Are there concerns, maybe not necessarily with SFU, but other institutions here in Canada, that with your friends, that your fellow colleagues, where athletics might get the chopping block, if you will?
Right, and I can't speak to any other schools. Right now, I believe, from everything I've heard from our athletic director, that everything at SFU, we're in a pretty good position.
Awesome.
There's no talk of cuts or anything like that. So when it comes to the financial side, but I know it's certainly it is a big issue. There's no talk of us cutting sports or anything, but for sure budgets are going to have to be adjusted, particularly because there was no full summer camps. We were able to do a little bit, but we probably missed out on $1 million of camp revenue. We don't maybe have our student fees when students aren't in person. There's the lack of the athletic and rec fee. So there's all these pieces that will definitely be affecting budgets.
Yeah.
For sure, and I would imagine that it's not just at our school, but across the board, and that's a real definite concern. And I don't know even how that will relate to maybe even scholarships, scholarship budgets for other schools. I know every school is different. I know for us, our scholarship budgets, because they're from endowments, are fairly protected. But I know that the budgets are definitely going to be an issue for the next, I can see, foreseeable future, until things get back, and who knows how long COVID will last for. But just going back to your last question, it reminded me, when it comes to recruiting, I think that another big piece for all schools will be the fact that we didn't have a season, and this is in the NCAA and in U Sport, that if players choose to reuse this year, there's going to be this backlog of athletes.
Oh, yeah.
Like we were supposed to have 2 seniors this year. They get their year back and they're returning. So we are returning my entire roster. Mm-hmm. So I have 15 players. They're all coming back, which, so for the next 2 or 3 years, if my players use their 5th or 6th year, depending if they redshirted, there's just going to be less space on my roster and I imagine other teams' rosters for players. And I think that's a big thing for those athletes who are now in grade 11 and 10 is how are teams going to manage this backlog if players decide to use that extra year?
Question from Jeff Anderson, Red Deer, Alberta. Your thoughts on how provincial organizations can continue or do better at growing the number of women in coaching?
Very good question. I mean, there's that quote, you have to see her to be her, right? So I think you need to it's getting the coaches, getting there to be female coaches out there, and if you look, right now in Alberta, what we have in post-secondary, of the 4 youth sports schools, sorry, I'm just having to go through it in my head here. So 3 out of 4 youth sports schools in Alberta have female head coaches.
Correct, yeah.
Right. And you see a lot of, there's been a ton of coaches who have come out of, say, the master's program through the U of A, so from Lori's program, who have then gone on to be to coach at other schools. And I think there's that mentoring, there's that program there's, like, for example, me growing up, I had more female coaches growing up than male coaches. And I think that's probably pretty rare, but like I mentioned, my high school coach, Erin Martin, my club coach was female, my university coach after 1 year was female. All of my provincial team coaches were female. And so I think that is a huge reason why now I'm a coach, and so I think it's, can we, whether it be the provincial organization or just club coaches, are we going out and searching and promoting or asking, like these maybe former players or whoever, anybody showing an interest in coaching to come and, are you interested in assisting? Are you interested, and pulling them in and getting them into that system and then seeing, those ones that show promise, are they interested in working up, and maybe suggesting, hey, do you know that this is an option, this, this master's in coaching, like there's these avenues out there, and, whether it be through the NCCP or what have you, but I think it's just searching out and trying to bring in, perhaps these female maybe former players that would be interested, and then promoting it and working with them and growing and teaching them, providing them with an environment that they feel valued and have a good experience and want to continue doing it. So I don't know if I have an exact answer, but I think it's can we get more people involved?
Yeah, totally. And I think it is definitely on the top of the list for provincial associations right now to work with this. Lori Eisler has been a huge advocate for this for forever, and now people are listening. So it's awesome that there is that change and expectation. And I would probably anticipate that one U Sport university in Alberta, when there's a changeover in coaches, I would probably anticipate that that's going to be a female coach in the future as well. So a question from Lee Carter. It's your birthday today, so happy birthday. Lee Carter's joining us. This was when you were talking about joining the national, or going to Doug Reimer's, the tryout for the national team and stuff like that. So, in reference, did you feel the same the first time you came to the national team as a coach? So I think he's referencing when you went there as a player and then you went there as a coach. What were the feelings that went through your head? Well,
first off, happy birthday, Lee, as well. And coming back as a coach, and I was a volunteer, like a guest coach, right? So it's not like I was part of the staff, but I remember coming back, and it would have been only 2 years after I had been on the team as a player. So I was there with, some of my teammates, right? I remember we broke up into, there was teams and we had to coach, each guest coach coached a team, and I'm coaching Tammy Mahan, who I've played with since we were on the junior team together in '97, right? So I didn't feel, maybe, I wasn't nervous, but it was more of just like trying to navigate how to be as a coach when I'm beside these people that are kind of more like peers. And I think it was, I definitely certainly didn't try to overcoach or give advice at that time, but it was, and I think the players who had played with me, I guess knew me well enough, and that they and maybe respected me enough that if I had maybe said something, they would have been open to it. But I just definitely tried to walk that fine line of just being there and doing my role. At that time it would have been Lupo was the head coach, and what do you need me to do, Lupo? I'm running this drill. This is exactly what I have to do, and just kind of focusing on trying to not mess up anything, right? So just come and do my job, and again, just try to fit that role of the coach, and try not to, how do you say, just, but still be me, right? Because these people are my friends, and so just keeping that open relationship. But there was definitely, it was a new experience, and each subsequent year that I came back, it was a little bit easier because I'll coach longer. So the longer I coached, then the more, I guess, comfortable I was in the role, and the farther it was from my playing days. But it certainly was interesting being back with, as a coach, but, half the players were my teammates at some point.
Lee's follow-up question is, what are you doing right now for professional development, other than Volleyball Coaches of Canada, of course?
Right. And that's a great question, because I really have spent a lot of time, I guess, during COVID thinking about that. It's like, okay, where are the opportunities in this, right? We've been kind of talking to our team about that, trying to not dwell on what we can't do, but what can we do? And, even going back to when we were first in lockdown in the spring, I spent a ton of time whether it be webinars or books. And I read learned a ton of stuff during that first lockdown. And I was, tons of notes. And I was like, okay, I need to incorporate this in the fall, right? And I had all these big plans. And for sure, I did incorporate some of it, but then, as I was reflecting during the Christmas break, I'm like, man, there's still so much stuff I didn't even get to. And so when it came to this spring, I was trying to think, how do I get better at actually, it's like the knowledge is one thing, but applying the knowledge is a whole new thing, right? And I think it was maybe Karch when he was on here last month when he said, you get better at coaching by coaching, you got to do it. Mm-hmm. And so it came to me, it's like, okay, well, if these are the things I want to get better at or that I'm trying to work on, then maybe I need to get somebody in here to help me, right? So I actually have a friend who's a teacher, a former teacher, who is kind of in between jobs at the moment, and I asked her, will you come and basically mentor me? She said, like, I just, in terms from a teaching standpoint, can you come in and listen to my communication, my feedback, and give me feedback on my feedback, or is there ways that I can improve it? And so I gave her some resources, and this is the stuff I'm trying to get better at. This is the stuff I'm working on. Can you come in and just basically, help me? And this idea came actually from when Lee Carter, during his sabbatical, probably 3 years ago, he came in to be my volunteer assistant, but really he was more of like a mentor coach. And I remember that fall when he was here, it being very beneficial, because everything I did, I just knew somebody was watching, and not that in a threatening way, but it just made me be better. And, he would sometimes ask questions, and it made me have to think, like, why am I doing this? And so, from that time that Lee was with our program, it made me think of this. And so that's where I actually have asked this person to come in, and it's been just even it's been the first 5 weeks, has already been super helpful, and just the questions that she'll ask in terms of, why did you do this? Or have you ever thought about this, or even asking about, we have maybe a couple players who might have some, IEPs or like some maybe dealing with some ADHD. So like, is there better, like, what is the best way to communicate with that? And so there's a ton I've been learning, and it's been very valuable to have another person in the gym that's just basically there to watch me. And again, because right now we're still in distanced training, so there's, just so much we can do with our team. And so I felt this was a great time to just get myself better.
Awesome. Megan, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, I think, well, Lee kind of stole my question a little bit. I had been, wondering what you've been doing during all this lockdown. And actually, he had said to me that you were thinking about bringing someone in to work on mindfulness with you. And so it's with you as well as with your athletes. Would you say that, this is something going forward that you think you'll really be able to work with your team once you're actually in person and doing all your training in person?
Right, and we are in person. Right?
You're lucky. Oh. Yeah,
so we're in a little bit better place than most, but we are able to be in person currently. Our whole team can be in the gym. We just have to be distanced. So it's individual reps, and there's no blocking, there's no 6-on-6. But we can all be either in the gym, right? Okay. So obviously masked, but. So we are luckier than most provinces at the moment, and so that has been, that's kind of what we've still been having daily practices. But yeah, for sure, it's all been beneficial, and hopefully will carry over to when we can get to be back on 6-on-6, or I know our players are itching to play like another team, like somebody other than ourselves again.
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to go back to females in coaching a little bit. It's something that I spent a lot of time thinking about and looking into. And, I've noticed that your conference seems to be kind of a 50-50 split, that you've got 5 female head coaches, 5 male head coaches. I've looked across the NCAA, the NAIA, U Sports, and like the percentages are still really low in terms of females head coaching. I know there's lots of us assistant coaching, but as a female head coach, I know you're trying to, have your assistant coaches go in and head coach in other places when they're finished coaching with you. Do you feel any pressure or responsibility to try to be one of those people that people look up to as someone who's a pretty constant, I would say now in the coaching world as a female who has gone in, changed a program, turned it around, been pretty successful. Do you feel any pressure, or are you just kind of going about your coaching as you normally would?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I feel any pressure for that. I mean, there's the pressure of my job, of just coaching and wanting to get results and perform and get our team the best they can be. But from the standpoint of of me being a female, like that doesn't enter into my mind. I do definitely have a desire to mentor, if possible, like any females that want to get into coaching, right? So having that space available for, say our players after they graduate, if they're interested in becoming a student assistant, how can I help them? Or if you're interested in pursuing coaching later on, or like I said, for my assistants, like how can I help them get into this if that is what they want to do? I am all for that. But I don't know if I feel like a weight or pressure because I'm a female in this position. And again, maybe it's because I have had so many great role models throughout my career, and in just how they approached coaching. I don't feel that they wore it around as this as a burden that they have to bear. It was just what they did, and they were great at it, and it just made me want to emulate them.
That's awesome.
Megan, anything else? Because I got a ton of questions here.
No, then let the people speak.
Question from Paul Funk. Since you've played against and seen styles of play from around the world, are the elements of a style of play from a country other than the U.S. You think Canada could adopt or learn from?
I don't know if there's any one style, I think Canada could really go and take the Russian style. I think it's more of a question of as a coach, if these are the people you have on your team, is what you're doing with the players you have at your disposal make the most sense given what their strengths are? It's for example, the Russians. When Gamova was there and she's 6'7", they didn't have to run her on speed. They just jacked the ball up as high as they humanly could set it, and then just let her hit over top of people. And sometimes I see club teams, and it's like you have this really tall middler who's the best hitter on your team, and she never gets set because she's in the middle, and we want to run fast quicks to the middle. And I mean, just as an example, for 4 years I had Tessa May on my team. She was an All-American middle. She was our best, one of our best attackers. She was a middle because she was a blocker, right? But sometimes when we were in a system, if the ball was passed, we would chuck up a high ball in the middle, like a 59 to the middle, and let her just hit it over top of the triple blocker. Most teams couldn't even think to triple block because who does that? Who throws up a high ball to the middle? Few teams knew how to defend it, that it worked great. And I mean, we don't do that anymore. Tessa's graduated, but for that time, it was like, well, this makes sense. She's our best hitter. Let's throw a high ball up to her, and it worked really effectively. But if you have maybe a smaller team, okay, we're maybe taking a more, say Asian, Japanese style where we're gonna can we move people around? I remember when we played Korea the first time at the World Juniors, at least 3 or 4 times they were one on none because of the combos they were running, And we even like game planned before it, and we were scouted, and we still got thrown off by their crossing patterns, right? So I think it's less about any one country's style, and more about can we think outside the box, and maybe by watching some of these other styles around the world, are there things I can learn and use with the players that I have at my disposal?
Okay. Just a side note here. I thought I was having a stroke, but your camera is like tweaking out here. So at the there we go. Whatever you did, it's good now.
I just touched my computer, so I'll...
Okay. All right. We heard you the whole time. Just the camera was flashing on and off. So, question from Len. Coach, what age group in club should technology start to inform decisions, both in-game and practices? And then there's just a comment. I'll just continue on. If we are to expose athletes to high performance training and give them a taste of what can be, what elements of technology should younger athletes wrap their heads around? Good question, Len.
Okay, so I'll start with the second part because it's the most recent.
Okay.
I think when it comes to technology or even video, I think you could start at any age. I think the younger the better. Like especially when they're just figuring it out, and it's like if you can provide them with a model, of what this is what it should look like, and they get to compare it with what it does look like. I think that's the fastest and most effective way for them to learn, and then be able to get lots of reps trying to do it. But that visual of seeing this is what we want, and maybe this is where you're at, and now let's try some reps, and now let's see, are we getting closer to what this is? And I think that can start, especially at the beginning age. So I think when it comes to like technology in terms of video, I don't think there's an age that's too young.
Okay.
And then the first part was about like in terms of the technology and was it like in terms of guiding performance, or like was it about gaining metrics and
what would you use? What age group in club should technology start? Which you've answered. What any age to inform decisions both in game and practices. So I think you nailed both of them.
Right, and I guess if that's also then starting to relate it to stats, at the younger ages it's fair play. So I don't know if people are like taking our passing stats and serving stats and being like, okay, you guys are going to be our starters when basically everybody's learning and needing to play. If you're getting to a club age where you're having a starting lineup and you might have to deal with perhaps parents wondering why is my player, like you're having to answer questions to players or even parents as to who's playing and why, it might be good to have some numbers to justify that.
Sure.
And I would say then that might be where you would want to start maybe tracking some things so you have some justification for your decisions more than just like, this is what I'm seeing, so that can come in handy sometimes, I would say.
The best is when parents do their own stats and then they try to compare them to yours or the coaches. So that's always a fun conversation. I think you answered this at the start, but Hugh Bartlett's online. You played different positions at a very high level. How challenging was it to make the changes? I know you touched on it, but if you want to reiterate anything, feel free.
I mean, I actually loved it. It kept things interesting, but there were obviously some challenges with it. And I think in the big scheme of things, I got to be good. Well, I mean, by the time I finished university, I was definitely a better attacker than I was a setter. And then when I got to the national team and they wanted to convert me back to a setter, I was all over that. I loved the challenge. I always loved being a setter even more than a hitter. I just wasn't as good of a setter, like in terms of, because I missed, my entire 4 years of college, reps of actually setting. And so, but all throughout probably my career, I enjoyed the position of setting just because you got to control the game. I liked being able to choose, the running the offense. So I loved that control piece of the setting. I just, because of me ending up hitting more than I said, my execution of the setting was not as good as maybe my attacking. So I would say it's that idea, or that idea of being a kind of a jack of all trades, in terms of I ended up being good at a lot of things, but never maybe great at any one thing. And so that's a trade-off you have with being maybe in a situation like that, which again probably could end up being, hurt me in some ways, but at the same time I don't think I would change anything about my career, just because I did find every new challenge super motivating, and I liked it, kept things interesting. But for sure, then after I switched from being a setter for, was it 2.5 years, and then had to switch back to being an outside, I wasn't jumping as high. I'd been 2 years without me max jumping. I had just been, jump setting mostly so there was these ebbs and flows of obviously my performance, but like I said, I wouldn't go back and change anything.
One last question from the comments section, and then I think Megan has one more, and I got one more, and then we'll call her a day. This is from Ryan Marsden's online out here at Olds College. And it goes back to video. How important is your video in your training sessions? How do you use it? How often do you use it? What exactly do you do with it? Yeah,
it's super important, and even it's been actually with COVID even more so. Only because maybe the girls have just more time, or we're not as busy competing, so they have more time to watch it as well. I'm very cognizant of our players' time, and especially during this, with the school year, and just the amount of work that's being placed on them, especially now during COVID with the online school. I don't know if I've talked to any of my players that haven't used the word overwhelmed when they're referring to their school workload. And so I'm usually very cognizant of their time, but with maybe less social time or social activities going on, they do have more time to watch videos. So in practice, we always have a live video feed. So an iPad that will give, so an iPad that can be streamed to a TV, so on a video delay, so they can get the immediate feedback. Especially when we're working on individual skills work, versus 6-on-6 is a bit hard to be stopping all the time to watch. But if it's passing or attacking, and can they do that? Can they do those reps and then be able to watch themselves immediately after? And then all of our practices are recorded on Volleymetrics. And so then after practice, I can go in, rewatch it, tag things, and so that then they can go in and then watch it a second time. And then if they have questions, they can comment back. And so I found that just very beneficial in terms of them just getting to see themselves more. And then again, me really trying, the first few years that I had with Volleymetrics, I definitely was all about finding things to correct and pointing out, okay, you see how you're not on the correct step here? Here's the ball in the setter's hands, you're not on this step yet, and finding all these things that need to be corrected. And I this year made it a definite goal to just point out things they're doing well. And so that's been my change this year. And I actually, one of my players with about 2 weeks in already mentioned, she's like, oh, like you're really, yeah, she made a comment about how much, I guess, I don't know, maybe more positive all the comments were. And I also do like to throw in some humor too. So when something funny happens, like somebody trips or they, takes a ball in the, funny dig, so there's a lot of funny things that happen in practice. Somebody, I'll throw in some funny comments because I know that will get them to maybe come in and want to watch more, just to find some of the funny bits, so anyway, to keep it interesting and motivating. But yeah, that was one big thing, is me really focusing on trying to find the good versus always pointing out this needs to be corrected, this needs to be corrected. But we do use it a lot.
Okay. Chad Grimm from Thompson River University women's team joining us. U Sport is examining increasing our substitution rule like you have in the NCAA. Thoughts? Do you have any thoughts, positive or negative in comparison to FIVB sub rules?
Right, and I've gotten this question a lot, obviously, because we're in a league that has 15 unlimited subs. And I'll say, because I spent my whole my whole college career with the NCAA sub rules, and now the past 7 years coaching with these sub rules. And so I am used to them. I'm used to them, and I enjoy coaching in it because it gives, it makes it interesting as a coach to have all these kind of opportunities to do some tactical things or things. So on one side, it's like I'm very used to those sub rules, and I actually enjoy using them. But at the other side, it's like, I look at NCAA men's volleyball, and they don't, it's literally only NCAA women's volleyball that has these crazy number of subs, or like, US club rules. But NCAA men don't use it. No other country in the world uses it. So part of me is like, if I was going to just go start a new volleyball league, I don't think I would choose to have 15 subs. Yeah. So it's like, it's the reality that I coach in, and I will use it to my best ability. And there's some fun things that can be done with it. I don't know that, like I said, that if I was, I would choose it for everyone, if that makes sense. I think with anything, you have some positive. Again, it doesn't prepare people for the next level. And at that point, it also is very much, you hear about this in the States often, of middles that haven't served the ball in 4 years or never get the chance to dig. So I think it sometimes can come back to the flop did the coach. So I mean, we have the NCAA rules, but my middles practice serve receiving, my middles practice digging, my middles serve a lot, because I want people on my team that can play volleyball. So I think it depends a little bit on the philosophy of the coach and how they will continue to train. But it's a very interesting question, and especially if U Sport was thinking about doing it, it's like I don't know if I would say, oh yeah, you should do it when the rest of the world doesn't. Even though there are some things I enjoy about it. So yeah, I would kind of be neutral on that one.
Megan, any final comments?
No, I just wanted to say thanks. This was great. I really appreciated being a part of this conversation.
The last question, I ask all the coaches this just because it's COVID and we're, stuck in our homes. You talked about reading a lot of books during the first lockdown. Is there anything that you recommend for us coaches so that we can do some personal development and upkeep on our education?
For sure, and I've watched enough of these to know this question might be coming. And for sure, I have a stack of coaching, leadership, business books, but I thought I'd go in a little bit different direction. And we were talking about this before I got on. The last book that I just finished reading was actually called Healing Back Pain. And I had been, 3 years ago, I had this sciatic kind of back issues, and I had it for like 8 months, almost a year actually. And I read this book, Healing Back Pain, and it essentially made it's about the body-mind connection, and it made my back pain disappear. And over the Christmas break, I had the sciatica flare up again. And I don't know what took me so long, but after about 4 or 5 weeks, I need to reread this book. And, all of a sudden I felt better. And so I know that as coaches, we can be stressed out at times. And so just, I guess, if there's ever a time where coaches are feeling, say, maybe some physical manifestations, like some pain that could be related to stress, I would recommend this book. And it's not just back pain. It can be ulcers, it can be hay fever, it can be headaches, it can like migraines, tendonitis. And I had a player on my team who was struggling with back pain, and I said, hey, you should read this book. And it helped her. So it's a super interesting topic in terms of the body-mind connection. And so again, because coaches can be maybe a little bit take on a lot and have a fairly stressful. It can be stressful at times, and it's just with COVID. I mean, what's not stressful, or causing anxiety at this time? So yeah, that was the most recent book I read, and the one that I am lined up next to read. I haven't started it yet, but it's Black History Month, and so How to Be an Anti-Racist is the next book that I'm planning to read. So those are kind of my two recommendations.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. I know you came on this a long time ago when we were just starting off Volleyball Coaches of Canada. I had an amazing time getting to know you and watching you coach and being in your gym during the Team BC summer a couple of years back. But I hope to have you on again. It was great.
Well, thank you for having me. It's what you're doing with these weekly interviews is great, and I've definitely been tuning in a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, Gina, and thank you, Megan, for co-hosting today. All right. Have a good one.